Thank you. You are held, wrapped and suspended in utero, then squeezed through the birth canal, slapped with your first breath, and then the embrace, the skin, the touch, the voice, the scent, the song, the rocking, the breast and the milk. You are held and beloved. Now, I know it doesn't always go exactly like that. There are C-sections, difficult births, babies that are left on doorsteps or born with addictions, fetal alcohol babies like my niece. But we know that touch, that human connection is crucial to nurturing humans. Today, on Mother's Day, we celebrate the ones who choose motherhood, and those of us who have had motherhood thrust upon us, we lift you up. During the early evolution of the human race, motherhood was the only recognized bond of relationship. Like other mammals, the primitive human family consisted of mother and offspring. The root of civilization was this maternal kinship bond that kept groups together to evolve mutual cooperation. It was maternal because the connection between sexuality and childbearing was unknown. Pregnancy was attributed to a variety of causes and of different durations. Imagine, they just weren't sure when it began. They didn't have a pregnancy test, see. It was believed that only women held the divine power to give life. Menstruation seemed to be the crucial factor. Now they got that part figured out, but sex, what does that have to do with anything? It was a casual, fun thing to do. Family lineage was determined by the mother. The earliest religious art are figures of the solitary great goddess. I personally did not experience birthing a child, but I heard the stories of my mother. She delivered children in a hospital on her back, as was the custom in the 50s and 60s. The first time with spinal anesthesia, and 2.5 years later, even more subdued. But leap forward 10 more years, 1967, and she had her first labor pain while she was having her hair done. The hairdressers were nervous and wanted to send her to the hospital, but she would have none of it. I've got plenty of time, she said. Finish my hair. She checked in at 6:30 and had that baby by 9 p.m. without anesthesia. She was relaxed and described the birth of my baby brother Ken as one of her peak experiences. Even her friend Martha had easy births. She said she laughed them out. Besides birthing, to lots of experiences, right? Besides birthing children, what else does it mean to be a mother? It does seem to require a certain amount of sacrifice. My best friend that told me that for 2 decades, her life was not her own. Can anybody relate? Think about it. Pregnancy itself can be life-threatening. And say we make it past that hurdle, then who stays with the baby? Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, babysitter, childcare if you can afford it. There are some parents in here? I'm just guessing. Probably. It's 24/7, right? Why do we have to do this alone? Childcare is generally expensive and rarely provided by an employer. Oh, how long have parents been crying for childcare? It's not glamorous, certainly not as advertised. There's no job review, not much positive feedback. Your infant isn't likely to sit up and say, "You're doing a great job, Mom." I mean, We can tell if they're not hungry, if their diaper is dry. We know when kids are happy, sad, excited, angry, or everything all at once. We read baby books, we talk to our own mothers or the doctor, join a mother's group. But ultimately, parents give up a lot. We give up careers or mightily rearrange them. We sacrifice sleep. Oh. We sign on for massive worry and guilt. Are we disciplining appropriately? Are we consistent? What consequences will produce the best result? Do we have a special needs child? Oh, now that must be our fault. Why do I have to fight so hard to get what they need? The right teacher, the right school system. Why doesn't my kid want to do anything? Why is my child always in trouble? How do I stop the bullying? Whether you are male, female, transgender, or any flavor in between, and you are raising or influencing a child, your own adopted, foster child, niece, nephew, or neighbor, then you have nurtured, cared for, and connected with another soul. Someone who looks up to you, someone who relies on you, someone who sees the mother in you. When I was 25, I worked as a nanny, a live-in nanny for 2 boys, about 7 months and a little over 2 years old. I rocked and sang the baby to sleep, stayed up when they were sick, trained my ear to hear them call in the night, experienced imaginative play. I had many duties: caregiver, teacher, cook, nurse, some housekeeping. I was for a time functioning as a mother. I came to appreciate the demands of this round-the-clock job. The safety of the boys was always my concern. There are many examples, going back, in human history of long-standing matriarchal societies, small, stable communities with abundant and varied food supply, no institutional war, right, Julia? Holy icons showed only naked women holding or nursing infants. These peace-loving groups really worked. They did for thousands of years. We have evidence. Consider that our Unitarian Universalist principles are closely aligned with ancient matrist society ideals: justice, equity, and compassion, acceptance of one another, democratic process, world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. In other words, this happened. And somewhere in our prehistoric mind, we know how to do this, or we knew how to live together in peace. That's what Julia Ward-Howe was alluding to, the means whereby the great human family can live in peace. I think we just forgot. Wolfgang Lederer writes about Neolithic agriculture. It was women who tended the garden crops and accomplished those masterpieces of selection and cross-fertilization, which turned raw wild species into the prolific and richly nutritious domestic varieties. It was women who made the first containers, weaving baskets and coiling the first clay pots. In form, the village, too, is her creation, a collective nest for the care and nurture of the young. How do we build cooperative villages today? Well, I think we used to call them music festivals. Anybody remember? You, Beverly Unitarian Church, are a village. Our regional and general assemblies are temporary villages. our covenant circles, book clubs, mother play groups, study groups, choirs, bands. You have opportunities all around. Now, reimagining daycare, public transit, government, food supply, these big and very real societal problems might take a little longer, but it doesn't mean don't try. Other aspects of building a village include the civilized arts, also credited to the goddess, agriculture, building, weaving, painting, writing, poetry, music, graphic arts, calendars. Now, calendars make sense to me. Even though early civilizations may not have known the duration of pregnancy, we did know that menstrual blood flowed every 28 days. And the moon cycled every 28 days. A menstruating woman obviously had a lot of pull. I would have listened to her. Let's talk about the arts. How do we promote creativity? Music, dance, art, dress, self-expression, there are so many ways. When I was 8 years old, I wanted to play the piano. We didn't have a piano, but Grandma had a piano. Now, Grandma lived in East Lansing, Michigan, and we lived in Boston. Moving that piano was going to be a sacrifice, but my mother prevailed. The piano was moved, and I started piano lessons. It is so moving to me to remember moments like that, sacrifices that she made. When my stepson started to display his artistic gift to draw, I looked for art lessons. In fact, at first, I even found a male teacher. And he flourished and improved, and it was such a joy to watch. How do all of you promote creativity? Part of caring for children is binding up their wounds. It can be as simple as a Band-Aid and as devastating as the death of a friend. My son lost his best friend to suicide when he was 19. His dad and I were out of town and missed his frantic call for 24 hours, back when we barely used a cell phone. We drove all day and most of the night to be with him and prepare for the funeral, because what else can you do? Losing someone you care about is a deep sadness. Losing a child, though, is a terrible shock. I have sat with dear friends, parents who have lost children. There seems to be no end to the grief. It is a club that nobody wants to join. Isn't this when we need comfort and community the most? My ex-partner called me when her father died. She felt there was no one who'd help her express her grief in a way that she felt safe, and invited me to sit with her. I agreed, and I held her while she wept, sobbing. I don't remember how long. Just holding space until she was done. I hope I affirmed that she was held and beloved by the universe. I hope I always do affirm that. In his discourse on universal love, Buddha states, as a mother, even at the risk of her own life, protects and loves her child, so let us all cultivate love without measure toward the whole world, above, below, and around, unstinted, unmixed with any feeling of differing or opposing interests. This state of mind is the best in the world. Real life challenges in our modern world include reimagining our cities and communities. A recent news story tells of the retail exodus from cities. I'm sure you're experiencing it here. There are so many obstacles: rising rents, people working from home, online shopping, crime, recruiting workers. Much needs to be addressed. Yet hopeful suggestions include flexible leases, pop-up stores, seasonal retailers, improving public transit, creating more affordable housing, and repurposing commercial real estate. Many of you live in this great city. Look around and see what's happening. How would you reimagine communities in Chicago to be healthy and vibrant? Just as we need to honor the earth and the air to live in health and harmony with all life, we need to give our body the rest and tranquility, nutrition, and exercise it needs in order to heal and thrive. So must we nurture our relationships and communities in order to heal and thrive. One day, I decided to call my stepdaughter. I had been carrying a deep resentment for 16 years, since the birth of her first child. I tell this story not for pity, but because I know it's worth it to take the brave step, to have the conversation, to be vulnerable. I told Amanda the story I made up about her, asked her forgiveness, and invited a new possibility for our relationship. It might not have worked. I was lucky. The next time I saw her, she welcomed me with her whole heart. And I felt not like I got my daughter back, but that I actually have a daughter and that I was her mother. I learned that being right doesn't get us very far, but being in relationship, all things are possible. I believe that creating beloved community is a perfect Mother's Day thing to do. Motherhood may not be as advertised, but it can strengthen us and guide us on our way. We have guideposts from the ancients and from activist foremothers like Julia Ward Howe and Anne Reeves Jarvis. We are learning, or we are relearning, how to do it with nonviolent communication, conflict resolution, right relations training. There are lots of resources. As we build connections, express conflict in a healthy way, and deepen relationships, we can create healthy congregations. We are all mothers, inspired by the spirit of life, called to live in beloved community and teach the world. Remember, you are held and beloved by the Great Mother. May it be so.
Please rise.